Will the real contenders in the NFC please stand up? A day of shaking and moving in the NFC playoff picture. Look, the Eagles, they stay up top. They won. They're 9-1, but they barely beat the Colts after losing on Monday night to Washington, and that can be forgiven. The Eagles were never going to go undefeated. Only one team in the league history ever has. But to then go to the Colts and almost lose that game, it's shaky. It's not the end of the world because almost didn't. They did win the game. But ultimately, if you're the Eagles, you want to see them start playing a little bit better offensively. The last couple of games, a little bit uneven, but you don't worry that much about Philly, who sits at 9-1. Minnesota is still the second seed, and by a decent, healthy margin. Look, Minnesota's 8-2, but the Vikings, let's call it what it is. They should have lost in Buffalo. Josh Allen fumbling the ball into his own end zone was the biggest gift in the world. It's one of the biggest bloopers in NFL history, considering the time and the moment. And then they go home and they play the Cowboys, and there's all this talk about, are they being disrespected? 1.5-point favorites on the road are Dallas. You say, well, maybe Minnesota's got a beef there. No, they don't. They got beat 40-3, and I don't even know that it was that close. The Vikings got pressure on Cousins relentlessly, turned him over. Parsons was everywhere. On the other side of the ball, Prescott was great. Tony Pollard continues to show why he should play every single down in Dallas's offense. CeeDee Lamb was very good. It was a game that confirmed a lot of the worst fears if you're a Vikings fan, right? The team's 8-2. The team is getting the job done on the whole. But on the flip side of things, the defense has not been good this year. Well, it was terrible on Sunday. The offensive line is always a concern in pass pro. Well, it was terrible on Sunday. Cousins, he can beat bad teams. Can he beat good ones? Well, it wasn't great against Buffalo. Found a way to get the job done. And not happening at all against Dallas, right? A terrible day. So you wonder, is Minnesota fool's gold at 8-2, or is it just a really, really bad day that even good teams have? You look at the rest of the playoff picture. You've got Seattle at 6-4 in the NFC West, Tampa Bay 5-5, the 3 and the 4 seeds. Look, both those teams were off a bye. Of course, they saw each other last week in Munich. Seattle losing that game to Tampa. You wonder coming out of the bye what those teams are going to show you. Look, Seattle is the darling of the year at 6-4. Geno Smith has been tremendous. You have two excellent receivers in Lockett and Metcalf. You have Kenneth Walker, the rookie running back, who's been awesome. The defense is rounding at the form. I think Seattle's for real, but how real are they? They have not beaten a good team this season. Right? The best team they've beaten is the Giants, we're going to get to in a minute. And the Giants, another team like Minnesota, you wonder fool's gold or not. But with Seattle, they're going to have to hold off the Niners in the NFC West. And let's continue to move down here. Tampa Bay at 5-5. Look, the best thing for Tampa is the division's terrible. Atlanta's within a game, but you don't worry about them. I think you feel pretty good if you're Tampa Bay that you're going to find a way to win that division, get in, get a home game, and maybe you get hot with Tom Brady in the playoffs. But then let's look at the wild card picture. You have two 7-3 teams, Dallas and the Giants, who, by the way, face off in Texas on Thursday afternoon for Thanksgiving. Dallas looking for the season sweep. Both of them 7-3. Dallas coming off the aforementioned big win against Minnesota. The Giants coming off of their real first clunker of the year, a hideous performance at home against the Lions. New York's been really, really good about beating bad teams, about handling the close games. Well, this game wasn't close. They turned it over 3 times. The Lions were able to run away with it. That's a bad job by the Giants. Like, the Lions, before Sunday, had won 1 road game under Dan Campbell. 1. Well, they won another one on Sunday, and they did it easily. And so now the Giants, 7-3, going to Dallas, and all of a sudden you start wondering, could this thing start to spiral a little bit? The Giants' schedule is not terribly tough moving forward, but it is something to keep an eye on. And finally, the 7th seed who plays on Monday night, the 49ers against the Cardinals. It's one of those games that you look at and say, if you're the Niners, you got to find a way to win. Right? It doesn't have to be a blowout. It doesn't have to be a game where the Niners assert dominance. It's in Mexico City. It's a neutral site game on primetime. Just go win the game. Just go win the game if you're San Francisco and get to 6-4, because right now, Washington is right behind you at 6-5. Give Washington credit with Taylor Heineke. They are finding ways to win games. They go into Houston. They dominate. That game's never close. Kendall Floor gets the pick 6 and gets rolling. And all of a sudden, Washington at 6-5 with 2 wins in 6 days. If you're the Commanders, you're starting to feel pretty good. You still have a couple games left against the Giants as well. So an opportunity to catch up in that wild card race, in that NFC East race. Obviously not going to catch Philadelphia, but maybe could jump up a spot or 2. So when you look at the NFC, who are the teams? Who are the teams that you look at and say that team is capable and or likely to win multiple playoff games? Who's the team that's going to make the run? I think you've got to give Philly its respect. Okay, the Eagles 9-1. They clearly can do that. I don't think there's any question. Now, there is a fair question about the competition that the Eagles have played this year, but there's nothing Philly can do about that. The Eagles are 9-1. They've been impressive most games. The last couple weeks, a little bit cause for concern, but I wouldn't go crazy. Beyond them, who's the team you're ultra confident in? Dallas showed what it can do when it plays a complete game. The Cowboys destroyed the Vikings in their own building. And yet, you worry about the Cowboys because they don't always play a consistent game. They don't always play their best game. They play games sometimes they take a ton of penalties or they're not particularly coached well. They play games sometimes defensively where the back end can be exploited. You wonder with Dallas, when they get to January, and the Cowboys will be in January, which team shows up? And is it one week and one the next? Because in the playoffs, that doesn't work. There's no givesies backsies. There's no, hey, we'll get them next time. No, you won't. You'll get them maybe in 2023. That's the conundrum facing the Cowboys. How consistent can you be? The Giants, look, I think if the Giants make the playoffs, they're happy to be there, right? I mean, obviously they're not going to say that, but I think if you're the Giants, you're thrilled. You're ahead of schedule. You move forward. The Bucs, can they get rolling 5-5? Couple of wins now over the Rams and the Seahawks. Can the Buccaneers find some consistency down the stretch? They have the advantage of playing in a division where they don't have to be perfect. They merely just have to win it, and 500 or so is probably going to do it. What can the Bucs do? They, to me, are the wild card in this whole race. Tampa's got Tom Brady. Tampa's got talented players on that roster. They have won a Super Bowl in recent years. Can the Buccaneers figure it out? Because if they do, I don't care what anybody says, you want no part of that team in a playoff game. If they figure it out, they're dangerous. Now, if they don't figure it out and this offense continues to be a pop gun, forget it. They'll get blown out by somebody along the way, whether it's Philly, it's Dallas, or the team I'm keeping my eye on, the team that plays Monday night against Arizona, San Francisco. San Francisco is a really talented team with a really inconsistent quarterback and a coach you have questions about in the big moment. And that's where I leave off with this. San Francisco might be the most talented team in the NFC. It's probably them or Philadelphia. The question becomes with the Niners, can they find consistency? Because for all that talent, and they've been injured, we get that, they're 5-4 going into this game against the Cardinals. They're not 7-2. They're not 8-1. They're 5-4. What can the Niners be over the last 8 games of the regular season and beyond? What can they prove? They've got plenty to prove, but if they can do it, they're a really dangerous team, whether they're a wild card or a Western Division champion.